blue collar guns and gear. 2 knives for when the stuff hits the fan. Well, I know this is going to open a can of worms. Everybody has their taste. Everybody has their likes and dislikes with knives just as much as guns. And if you don't believe that, then you need to attend the Blade Show. I go to Blade Show every year, and I guarantee you that those guys are every bit as serious, if not more serious, than gun guys are. Yeah, so you can believe that. Anyway, this is for stuff hits the fan. If you're going to carry 2 knives, maybe 3 if we're going to cheat, because some of us are going to want to carry at least 2 blades at a minimum. So my choices, what are they? Well, I have to go by the most practical uses and what they're going to be used for most often, whether it be camp chores or opening cans or dressing an animal, field dressing, and maybe at a last resort, self-defense. So you got to think of the size you're going to carry. You don't want it to be too big, too cumbersome, too one-dimensional as far as, you don't want it to be so big that you can't do small chores with it, and you don't want it to be too small where you can't do some of the bigger stuff and some of the bigger chores, like self-defense. And, how utilitarian are these blades? What type of blade style do you like? Do you like serrated? Do you like just a fixed blade with a straight edge? I do, personally. What about a Tonto? Tonto style blade with the stronger point, made for puncturing. They're good for opening cans and for puncturing, and they're good for self-defense. Nothing wrong with a Tonto blade. But me personally, I kind of like a clip blade on the end. I like a drop point personally for field dressing a deer. It's just the way my hand works. Everybody's different. But I can also manage with a clip blade, clip point, kind of like that. Just fine. I hunted with a K-bar like that when I was young. I used it for a hunting knife many times. And then my dad bought me a handmade knife, and I've been using it ever since. And it's wonderful. But for all purpose, maybe not. What about Swiss Army knives? I know some of you guys are crazy about Swiss Army knives. They are very practical in their own way. I carried one for a while in my pocket, and I found it to be rather cumbersome. It was big, it was bulky, and most of the stuff on it I didn't use. So I decided just to continue carrying a pocket knife along with a multi-tool, which is flat, and it's a very simple multi-tool because I decided on a multi-tool that has things that I will use. A lot of multi-tools, they might have 20 tools on them or more than that, when half of that stuff I'm never even going to use it. And I've never found a use for it, personally, in my day-to-day. There's only certain things that I'll have to use. And even if the stuff hit the fan, I have other tools. But as far as a multi-tool goes, I like a really simple multi-tool with just the basic stuff on it that's nice and flat and it's small, and I can carry it in a pouch or somewhere else. And a Swiss Army knife, it has all that plus the blade, but personally I would rather just have a really, really good folder, so I don't have to compromise on my blade. And I'm not saying that all Swiss Army knives do, but I just felt like it was not worth the effort. But they are cool, and I do understand the practicality of them. And also boot knives. What about boot knives? I have a couple of boot knives here. I have several of them, I've collected over the years. I've been collecting knives since I was a little boy. And I believe a boot knife is also a good idea. So if I were going to carry 3 knives, I would have a boot knife. And this is just a cheap United Cutlery. Has a 5-inch blade, and it's bladed on both sides. It's got a decent edge on it or whatever. These are made for puncturing. They're made for self-defense. and pretty much self-defense only. And you can throw them, you can stab with them, you can defend yourself. But for me, I look at all of them and I have to find a happy medium. Like say I like a 2.5 to a 4.5 inch blade for hunting, for field dressing animals, and for skinning. But it may not be perfect for self-defense. And when it comes to self-defense, it may not even be against another person. It may be against an animal. It's just something to consider. So I like a little bit longer than my standard hunting knife, but not too big to where I can't use it for the smaller chores. So I want a little bit more reach out of something when the stuff hits the fan. This is not for everyday carry. This is not for, in a civilized world. This is for stuff hits the fan. And so some compromise is inevitable to get the most out of one single knife. If you want to get the most out of one single knife, knives are just like guns. There's no perfect knife for everything. Just like there's no perfect gun for everything. It's just not possible. But I have this little SOG. It has a serrated, partially serrated edge, which does have its uses. I found that serrated edges do have their uses, and I'm not a big fan of serrated. I like a normal straight blade, and I have lots of them. This is actually a Freeman. This is a custom made knife. This man Jeff Freeman is out of Oregon, and he makes these knives. And I bought this at Blade this year, and it's very good. It's a 6.5 inch blade. It is just so stout. You can tell that this knife will really hold up well. But it's a little heavy and everything. I have to have a drop leg for it. I don't really care for the drop leg that much, but the knife is awesome. Something around that size. This is an Ontario Rat 7. Also a 6.5 inch blade. It's a nice big blade, good for chopping, good for self-defense, but maybe still a little bit wide for all purpose. And I know what some of you may be thinking. This is the K-Bar, and it also has a 6.5 inch blade. And if I had to pick one fixed blade knife, and that's a Camillus, the one on top there. I don't want to stop what I'm saying, but this is a Camillus. This was my uncle's. He was a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, and this is the USMC fighting knife. I love that knife. But anyway, I think for all purpose, for just about anything and everything, it also has the metal end here. You can use that as a hammer or to break glass or anything. You can use it for hunting. You can use it for self-defense. I could skin out a squirrel with this. It has a pretty long blade, but it's not too thick. It's not too wide, is what I mean. It has a good thickness. You can chop wood with it. You can chop kindling. You can hunt with it. Big game or small game. I think that the K-Bar is just about the perfect knife for me, for a fixed blade. I have a lot of different options here. I'm trying to keep this as blue collar as possible. Like this Freeman, I would not necessarily consider it blue collar. It's a great knife, and compared to some knives, what they cost and for the quality, this is a really good deal I got on this. But the K-Bar can be had for around $65 or $70, and I'm trying to keep this under $100 for two knives. So I would have, personally, I like the K-Bar because it's not too wide right here. It's not too wide at all, a little over an inch, but it's nice, and it's 6.5 inches. It has plenty of length for self-defense or for doing some of the bigger jobs, any kind of camp chores or whatnot. I need to do a review on these Mora knives. These are made in Sweden. They're extremely nice. They have a 4-inch fixed blade. They're very sharp. They're very practical. And they're just good all-around knives for around $15 a piece. Also look at used knives. Anytime you're at a pawn shop, this is an old buck knife. USA made buck knife that I picked up a while back for like $15. That's a great, well-made knife that could do a lot of different things. Same thing with this old Schrade. This is a USA made Uncle Henry. There's so many different options that you can have for knives. I mean, I have a lot of good stuff. That's a case there. Rosewood handles. Slab side hunter. They only made these for a couple of years. And that only has like a 3-inch blade, but that is perfect for dressing a deer or whatever. It's super sharp too. I would recommend a good fixed blade around 6 inches. Maybe just a little bit more, just a little bit less. It's not too much. It's not too little. And it's not too wide like this compared to this. I really like the K-bar. I mean, it's just an all-American classic, but they had the design figured out right. They did it right because everything about it is just utilitarian completely. Now, when it comes to pocket knives, again, opinions, they're like nose holes. Everybody has one. So I want something that's going to be durable, sturdy, able to do, those utility jobs and stuff. I don't want something too small, like this little Schrade Barlow. Good little knife, but it's a little bit small, but I don't want anything too big. This CRKT, I was carrying this every day for a while. It's stout. It's really stout, but it's 5.5 inches closed. That's a little bit big for my pocket. It's just not that comfortable. I like that it has this right here. I'm immediately open. I have a 3.5 inch blade here. It's a good knife, a really good knife, but it's a little bit big when closed. It's just a little too big for the pocket. Something like maybe this Gerber. This is like an old Gerber Gator, USA made. It'll flip open too, not quite as easily, but it also has a 3-inch blade, but it's not quite as large closed up as the CRKT. I like something that's going to be sturdy, it's going to be durable, but it's not going to be too big for a pocket knife. Again, there's no such thing as perfect, so you might have to be, you might have to find a happy medium with a pocket knife as well. Some people like the Microtechs. Those things are awesome for self-defense. They're great for concealed carry, and I would always recommend carrying one if you could get your hands on one. They're not cheap, but I mean, they're very well made, and they're excellent for self-defense. They really are. But for just a pocket knife, I don't know if a Microtech is what I would want or not. And I certainly would not want to be holding a Microtech if I had an experienced fighter, with a K-bar or any of these bigger blades. They have more weight. They have more, not too much weight, but just the right weight. That's just me. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, I'd like to hear your opinions on knives. But for me, out of this little bunch I've got here, I would probably carry the K-bar, and I would probably carry this Gerber. It has a good stainless steel blade. It's not my favorite pocket knife of all, but for practical use, all-around use, I think it would be, out of the ones here, I think it would be a good one, just for all-around use. And then I would stick a boot knife also into my boot. But that's just me. And I would like to hear your opinions and why. And let's talk about it. What is a good combination for 2 or possibly 3 knives for when the stuff hits the fan? Now, I appreciate you watching. Y'all come see us.